Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Brett Danko, and this is...
I'm Rob Kron.
Woo-hoo-hoo!
This is the second installment of College Planning with Old Guys in T-Shirts. And in this installment, we're really going to focus on how to help your kid get into whatever school it is they want. And essentially setting up opportunity for them.
How do we help them get in?
Okay.
And we're not allowed to just write out checks.
Well,
you could.
I mean, you could, right?
You could.
But because clearly, depending on the institution, they're either
they might be willing to accept it.
But I think that the dance here is you're trying to help them look at different schools and get a flavor for what they like and where they want to be. But a horrible outcome is they get all excited about wanting to go to, X school, and then they don't get in. And so equally important to making sure you find the right place they want to go is taking the time and energy to make sure that you position them to be able to get into wherever they want to go. And the way I describe it is you're spending from the first day of their freshman year until they're accepted at whatever school they're going to go is your critical resume building period where you're creating the most opportunity that you possibly can for your child, right? You're giving them as many options as possible so that then when they do decide what school they're going to want to go to, right, that you've given them the largest pool to pick from. And when we get to the money part of it, what you're also going to find is you've given yourself the greatest chance at qualifying for merit aid. So helping them get in is something that starts first day of freshman year in high school. And it doesn't end until they've actually been accepted to wherever they want to go. So
you're saying you're not supposed to start senior year worrying about your things.
I guess you could, and I think that
some kids do.
What you're doing is you're narrowing your options at that point, right? Because you've now missed the chance to include a lot of things that colleges are going to look at to help you get in. So maybe it would be helpful if we talked about what are those things that colleges are looking for when they're making a decision about is that student right for us or not?
Yep.
GPA, important, right? It's actually probably one of the most important. And it's not just the number, it's the number relative to the school they attended. I've been to a lot of college presentations over the last few years, and every single one of them talks about how they evaluate GPA within the context of the school that your child attended. So they're looking at what were the types of classes offered, how rigorous, what types of classes did they take versus what were offered, where were they with regards to top 10, bottom 10, etc. of their class. So GPA is the label, but there's a lot more to it than just whatever their number is.
And that concept of rigor of classes, I think that's, if you just want to touch on that, because that matters. If you get all A's, but you're taking the most basic courses, that necessarily isn't the best.
A lot of schools will recalculate your GPA, and how they recalculate it varies from school to school. So there were a lot of schools that we visited where they're like, look, we drop any class that's not related to, core topics. So the health class you took, the PE class,
you got A's in those.
A lot of the electives that you took, they were all your A classes. But guess what? They're not part of the GPA calculation for that school. They'll overweight an AP class you took. Maybe they'll look at the GPA, but then they'll also look separately at what level of classes did you take. Did you take a math class all 4 years, or did you take whatever was required your first two and were like you checked out the last two, or an English class all 4 years? And so again, it depends on the institution, but they look at more than just 3.8 or 2.2 or whatever it was, right? There's a lot more to it.
So we have test scores, although it seems like lots of schools are now, where I'm seeing anyway, test optional.
So especially at the small private liberal arts schools. That seems to be a trend. My youngest son and we just visited 4 colleges in the last month. All 4 of them are small liberal arts schools. All 4 of them have just recently gone test option. And so what does test optional mean?
Well, test optional means is for ACT, SAT, even subject tests. You can submit those if you want, but you don't have to. So it's one of those things that if you choose not to, if you choose to submit a video or you choose to just let your grades and extracurricular activities suffice on your application, saying, look, this is what I want to show you, that's actually okay. And a lot of it has to do with, in terms of, I guess the kids now, they'll, in many cases, will take a test to see whether they are better at the SAT or the ACT. Okay, and then, so your school could help you do that, or you hire a consultant, and then you get tutored and this and that. Well, what if you don't have the money to have a tutor? What if your parents are going through a difficult situation and nobody's even kind of paying attention? So you're just a regular kid trying to go along. You have all these other folks that are getting coached up, and, oh, this is what's best for you, and, oh, here's a question, and this and that. Whereas other people, they might not have access to that. And it might just not be money. It might just be if you're the first generation to go to college in your family. There might be plenty of money there, but they don't know what to expect. They didn't know to hire a consultant or do any of these things. So that's why a lot of schools are saying, it may not be the best way for us to get to know you. And what other ways can we get to know you?
Yeah, so the phrase I heard over and over again was, 4 hours on a Saturday might not define you. And if that's the case, then we'd encourage you to go the test optional route. And what's interesting here is they were very clear that if you do send them your score, they're going to look at it.
Yep.
So one of the pieces of advice here is, when you sign up to take either of these two tests, don't send it anywhere prior to taking the test.
Because you can always do that later.
Right. So wait to see how you did. And then if you're proud of the score and you think it's going to help your chances of getting admitted to one of these test optional schools, then you send it. If it's not telling the story you want to tell, then you don't send it. Because they were very clear. If you send us the score and it's not good and then tell us, well, just cross it off, they don't do that. They're not.
You can't unsee it.
They're not test blind, but they're test optional is the phraseology that they used.
So we talk about grades, we talk about possible, test scores, and now let's get into extracurriculars.
So important. So again, all of these schools, especially the liberal arts schools, right, are really looking for the complete understanding of that student and will they be a good fit for their school. And extracurriculars are a big part of that. And this came as a huge shock to my children. But proficiency on their Xbox or PlayStation didn't count. Right?
Now, it should. It should. Let's be honest, it should.
Actually,
if you're good, it probably should.
If you're in an e-sport league pulling down $500,000 a year playing Fortnite, then you probably could include that as something that would be impressive.
That's fair.
But just because you racked up a whole bunch of deaths in Call of Duty, probably not going to move a college admissions counselor to view you favorably, right?
So wait, so I should just join everything, right?
No.
Just join everything because then I'll have a whole long list. Is that how it does?
Well, there may be some school that is valuing quantity over quality, but a lot of them talk about demonstrated leadership. And so it's great that you're a member of Model Congress or that you're participating in football or whatever the extracurricular is. But if you're able to put that you were the president or the vice president or the secretary or whatever of that club or organization, or you were a captain, co-captain, or lead at your position, or again, any way to demonstrate leadership, that's going to count a lot more and catches their eye. So it's better to pick a few things that you can be passionate about and demonstrate an ability to lead in that versus just having a laundry list of 100 things.
And for example, if you're an athlete, that's something that goes on kind of the first part of our conversation. If you're a Division III athlete, when you're like, well, I could play on a Division III level, but not on a Division I level, and you really want to play in college and not just at a club level, you want to be on the team, well, then maybe Division I schools aren't on your list. So, or you're looking at smaller Division I schools. So I do think that sports plays a role in that as well as to whether you actually want to try and be on the team or do you want to be on the club level, because almost every school has club sports for lacrosse. You say, well, I'm not going to be playing on the team, but I want to be on club level. you'll be able to.
Right.
And
It's amazing to me the different sports that are offered on these campuses. Quidditch, which I don't even know like how you do that outside the realm.
that is
of
not an NCAA
fantasy.
sport.
No, but
you
it's
know?
a very popular club sport in a
Yeah.
lot of these colleges I visited.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of really kind of fun-oriented things. But it is. There's a lot of opportunity to participate in those things. The other thing I'd add is don't think that choice is going to be limited just to athletic desires. If your child is passionate about speech and debate
Sure.
or other theater, music,
Yeah.
clearly that's another factor then in looking at schools of how strong is that speech and debate program or theater for non-theater majors. And so understanding that having a list of extracurricular activities that they were deeply engaged in and hopefully had some leadership is important for helping them get in, but it's also helpful in guiding your search process as you're narrowing down that list.
Yeah, so let's talk about just interest that you're showing in the school. I think that's something that's really important.
So as
Schools want you to be there.
they want you to want to be there, right? And so
Wait, what was that song? I want you to want me. Now I'm old.
are you going to sing that now?
No,
for us?
no, I want you. No, I'm serious. Do you remember who was Cheap Trick?
Cheap Trick.
Cheap Trick. That's right.
That was Cheap Trick.
Okay, don't make fun of me. I just go ahead.
It's
go
hard
ahead.
not to, Brad.
Go ahead.
It's
Go
hard
ahead.
not to.
Seriously, go
But
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, the point you're bringing up here is if we're summarizing what are the things that are going to help your child get in, GPA, tests potentially, though there is this test optional theme that's increasing, extracurricular activities, and then this last one is demonstrated interest. And it depends on the school, right? Some schools have very little concern of whether or not you want to be there. But a lot of schools do, and a lot of the admissions counselors I've talked to have told us that that's actually one of the scoring mechanisms they use for not only determining who they're going to admit, but also it's part of the merit aid conversation as well. So what is demonstrated interest?
Yes.
What does that mean?
One of the things is they actually will track your emails. So when they send out an email to you, they actually know who's opened it, how much time. Now, this isn't all schools, but how much time you spent on the website or reading the article, etc. And they look at it and say, well, wait a minute. In our world today, where kids are attached to their phones, if they spent, they waited 2 weeks to open up the email from XYZ school, or they spent 3 minutes and then they spent some time on the website, well, wait a minute. I think they're more interested in that. So I think any type of give and take, going to college fairs, I think that's something that is, you do through your school. A lot of the schools will do them in different areas of a state or something like that. And you go ahead and show that you want to be there. Actually going to campus, doing an on-campus interview. That shows that you actually want to do an interview. You want to do a tour. You actually aren't just saying, well, I'm just including it in on number 15 through 20 on my list. You actually are saying, this is a place I really want to go.
Yeah, I would say there's 4 key elements for demonstrating interest. 3 of them are related to either going to the campus or, as Brett mentioned with the college fair, showing up when they come to you. But the 3 the first items there are, do you take the college tour? And if you're going to do it, make sure you've signed up officially to take it, because then that goes in the system demonstrating interest. Usually when you're doing a college tour, they'll also offer an information session. And they're usually 2 separate things. You can sign up for them both at the same time, but they're different events. And they're obviously, if you do them both, that's more demonstrated interest than if you just do one. And then probably the most important is if the school offers the option to interview, there's no better demonstration that I want, to potentially attend your school than signing up for that interview and then crushing that interview.
Yeah.
So this isn't an interview where you just show up and wing it. This is something you should probably prepare for. Should spend a little time role playing about, all right, what types of questions you think you're going to get. How are you going to respond? Because that person interviewing you is taking notes, and they're going in the file that they're going to review when it comes time to make admission decisions as well as merit aid decisions. And so you want to make sure that, yeah, I'm demonstrating interest, but I'm also putting my best foot forward so that they have a really good sense of who you are and whether or not you're going to be a good fit for the school. And then the fourth item is related to all of that electronic communication, right? Are you opening their emails? Are you responding back? Are you asking questions? And all four of those are important. And again, if your goal is to get into that school and potentially qualify for some merit aid, you should do as many of those as you possibly can.
And they make it easy, so you can go ahead and you'll do the info session, and then right after that there'll be a big info session usually, and then they break off into 3-5 groups or whatever, and you go on smaller group tours. And then usually either after that or even before the info session, you can do your interview. I mean, you can get in and out of there in 2.5-3 hours.
Yep.
So because if you're going to be looking at a bunch of schools, that's something to keep in mind. You're going to have to keep moving. And so it's not, no, it is. You're trying to do that. So now that we've kind of done those things, we talked about your record over 9th, 10th, 11th, into 12th grade. Now you have to apply.
Yep.
Ooh, so we got an application, we got essay, so they do this thing called the Common App.
Yes.
So what is that?
So it's a phenomenal invention, right? Clearly not something around when we were going through this.
No.
But essentially it's one application that you can fill out and then send to most schools, right? So you're not filling out, this school's application and then a different application for someone else. It's one application that you can be very thoughtful and thorough in completing, and then it, for the most part, will meet the requirements of most schools that you want to apply to. There are exceptions. Some schools will require supplemental elements like additional essays or additional short answer questions, additional recommendations, those types of things. But generally speaking, a student between their junior and senior year in the month of August, because the new one for the given year comes out at the beginning of August usually, if they spend that month of August working on their Common App, that's probably the best advice I can give a parent, because what you'll find is the beginning of the senior year, right? If they're taking classes that are that are challenging, so that they're showing schools that they're an engaged student, working on the Common App at the same time they're starting those classes, not the best idea. And if they're participating in a sport and other extracurricular activities. So leverage the fact that you've got the month of August where you're not doing those things to get that Common App done. And the essay that you mentioned, you start on that as soon as you're done with your junior year. So beginning of June, middle of June, whenever that is, start writing that essay at that point so that both that essay and the Common App are done before classes start the beginning of your senior year. I think it's important to talk about early decision versus early action versus regular decision. And my experience, and what I'll offer up to anyone beginning this journey, is any place that offers early action, take advantage of it. A whole host of reasons, but just at the top of the list is, at a lot of schools, you will find that the acceptance rate for kids who have applied early action is higher than those that have done regular decision. It's a demonstrated interest thing.
So early decision, early action. Just remember, early decision, you are saying I'm going to go there, and one of the problems with that is that you may not know how much financial aid you're going to get.
Right. If you look at the percentage, and again, this is a generalization, so it's not true for all schools, but if you look at student X who has a given GPA, given test scores, given extracurriculars, and you compare their acceptance rate had they applied early decision versus early action versus regular, you will find that increased percentage early decision, slightly less early action, and then dramatically lower for regular decision. So again, my suggestion is pursue early action. If it's the school that that's for me, and they offer early decision, then you select that. But again, the caution there is you're bound by that decision, and so if the financial aid package isn't going to work, that you won't want to do that. Early action is great. Here's the other advantage to early action. This is a stressful time for you as a parent and for your children. Am I going to get in? We're going to be able to afford it? How am I going to pick? By getting this all out of the way, where essentially you mentioned these November-ish deadlines, November 1st to December 15th is usually the range for early action and early decision windows. By getting your applications in at that point, right? First off, you're going to hear back now from those schools in late December to early January. And so now your child and you as parents have from January to May 1st to talk about what makes the most sense for us.
You don't just drink and not go to class?
Again, it depends.
It depends. Every student's different.
Right, everyone's different.
Bloom where you're planted or something like that.
Something like that. But I think that the key here is all that time it buys you to, one, when you get that first acceptance letter back, you cannot imagine the weight that gets lifted off of everybody in the family's shoulders, right? Because we're in somewhere and it's a place we want to go. So even if everything else, goes to hell in a handbasket, we're set with this place. So that and that actually happened with our first child, right? They applied early action at a school. They got their application in a little bit before the end of October. The school got back to them within 3 days.
Wow.
Accepted them, gave them an excellent financial aid package, demonstrated we want you. Yeah. So from that point, the rest of the senior year was like, I mean, at least I can go here.
And you can actually enjoy your kids. Like, I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's like, because the pressure.
Is there another story here, Brett?
No, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Think about it. Yes, they still have to go to school. Yes, they still have to perform and get good grades, but the pressure's off. You can actually just, it isn't, occupying every minute or of your discussions with them or every thought. So
yeah. So I've harped on this a lot, but early action is a great option for increasing your chances of getting in, for giving you that early relief that I got in somewhere, and then it gives you a large window to evaluate where you ultimately want to go. Because one of the things you'll find, unless your student was certain and did early decision or had their sights set on one or two schools, you're going to find that period from January to May 1st, when they have to finally decide, there's a lot of questions that need to get answered, right? So you're probably going to go back to one or two or three of those schools for what are known as admitted student days, so that they can kind of reacquaint themselves with, all right, what did I like about this place? And they'll have the option to probably attend a class or two to get a sense of what that's all about. They'll get a hard sell on why they should be going to that school. But you can't do that. You can't go to 20 admitted student days. I mean, I guess you could, but that's really hard. You need to be able to narrow that down. And if you're not putting that list together until April 1st, which is, if you went regular decision,
when do they let you know?
They have until April 1st to let you know. Now, not all of them take that long, but some of them will. So now you've got 30 days
to decide.
Figure it out. And again, that's a lot of pressure to put on yourself and your kids. So anyway.
Yeah, so those are all things to think about in terms of the application process, etc. All right, so we talked about, helping them get in, is that it is a full, really 9th through 12th resume that you're bringing it all together. Okay, so, and that's really important through all those various factors we discussed. Now, the last part is paying for it. And here's what's interesting. We've spent, 3 hours. How long have we been doing this?
A long
month
time.
And a half, whatever it's been. No, half 20 minutes, half hour, whatever it's been. We've actually been talking about everything except paying for it. Because making the right decision and having them be in the right place for them is paramount.